I mentioned one of these circumstances in the Grand Reset, where Marx talks about the way in which capital creates all kinds of possibilities through its technologies, through its possibilities, and all the rest of it. But at the same time as it does that, it does it in such a way as to produce a form of developmentalism that is vulgar, a form of developmentalism that is empty, that is hollowed out, that is meaningless. And so what we get is a form of urbanization and a form of capital accumulation operating right now, which is concentrated on creating meaningless kinds of environments, built environments, and doing it in such a way as to try to maximize the utilization of our senses in instantaneous pleasures and instantaneous turnover times of consumption habits. When Marx kind of says, look, we are all victims of abstractions. These are the abstractions which are powering this system right now. These are the abstractions which have to be confronted if we want to create an alternative kind of world. But you can't do it all of the time. You don't recognize that this is what is happening. This is why I get back to this notion of repressive tolerance. What is it that we can talk about and what is it that we cannot? For instance, conventional economists will not be able to talk about these sorts of questions. When Krugman kind of said in 2008, the people lacked the ability to understand what was going on. There was this wonderful moment which I always recall and often refer to, when Queen Elizabeth, bless her soul, was sitting down with a bunch of economists from the British Association, and said to them, how come you economists didn't see this thing happening and didn't predict this thing? And the economists were shocked that somebody would ask them such a question, but because it was a question that I would ask, but nobody would take any notice. But because Her Majesty asked it, they decided to have a committee to have a look at what's going on, and they produced a report for her. And the report said, well, we missed something. What we missed was systemic risk. And you think to yourself, you have a whole discipline, and you miss systemic risk. This is crazy. I mean, when you create an airliner and you don't take any notice of any systemic risk, you get something like that Boeing catastrophe. And a lot of people are held accountable. Well, you should hold the economists accountable for the fact that they didn't know, and they didn't notice what was going on because they were living with this efficient market hypothesis. Now, the efficient market hypothesis is one which says that demand and supply, equilibrium, prices, all this kind of thing, they work out in the long run, provided you leave it alone and don't interfere too much with it and you deregulate it, right? That is the model which works extremely well, provided everybody is behaving like rational economic man. It's always man that you talk about here. So the rational economic being will behave in such a way in a market that everything works out. That was the efficient market hypothesis. But it turns out there are many areas in which that does not work.